that leaves us exposed in ways that diminish our sense of self. It's true that we are often encouraged to let people in, to allow others to see our struggles, our triumphs, our raw humanity. But in that same space of openness, we sometimes forget that there's a vital part of ourselves that needs to remain protected. Not because we're hiding, but because we are learning the importance of guarding our internal landscape, our emotional well-being, and our deepest values. Boundaries are the silent protectors of our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They are not walls keeping people out. They are fences defining where we end and others begin. Establishing and maintaining boundaries is an act of self-respect, self-preservation, and ultimately self-love. However, too often we overlook or undervalue the importance of boundaries in our lives, believing that to be truly open and loving, we must be completely available to others at all times. But the truth is, the opposite is true. To show up authentically for others, we first must show up for ourselves by respecting our own limits. Boundaries are the lines we draw to protect our energy. Without them, we risk overextending ourselves, becoming emotionally depleted, and even losing touch with our sense of self. Imagine that your energy is like a bank account, and every interaction, every task, and every commitment is a withdrawal. Without boundaries, it's easy to run out of emotional currency and be left feeling empty or overwhelmed. The more we allow others to take from us without consideration for our own needs, the more we erode our own sense of stability and peace. Establishing boundaries is a form of investing in your own emotional bank account, ensuring that you have enough to give when you truly want to and when it's truly healthy for you to do so. But creating these boundaries is not always easy. It requires courage and clarity. It requires the ability to say no without guilt, to honor your own needs without apologizing, and to be unwavering in the face of pressure or judgment from others. Boundaries are a reflection of your values and your understanding of your own worth. When we fail to establish boundaries, it's often because we are afraid of disappointing others or being misunderstood. But in reality, failing to set boundaries is a way of disappointing ourselves because we abandon our own needs in favor of pleasing others. One of the most important aspects of boundaries is understanding that they are not rigid or permanent. Boundaries evolve, just as our needs and circumstances change. What might be a healthy boundary for you today could shift in the future, depending on where you are emotionally, physically, or mentally. They are meant to be dynamic, offering flexibility while maintaining the core principle: you are in control of what you share, how you share it, and with whom. By checking in with yourself regularly, you can assess whether your boundaries are still serving you or whether they need to be adjusted to meet new needs or challenges. Importantly, boundaries also teach others how to treat us. When we establish clear limits, we communicate to others that we value ourselves and we model respect. Healthy boundaries allow for healthy relationships because they create space for mutual respect, trust, and understanding. Without boundaries, we run the risk of building relationships that are based on imbalance, where one person's needs consistently take precedence over the others. Boundaries give everyone involved the opportunity to contribute equally, without one person feeling overwhelmed or resentful. Boundaries are also essential for emotional regulation. When we don't have clear boundaries, we can easily become overwhelmed by the emotional states of those around us. We absorb their stress, their anxieties, their joy, their anger, all of which can lead to emotional burnout. By recognizing where other people's emotions end and where our own begin, we protect ourselves from taking on the emotional weight of others. This not only protects our mental health, but also allows us to respond more thoughtfully to the needs of others, rather than reacting impulsively or emotionally. Another powerful aspect of boundaries is that they protect our time. Time is one of our most precious resources, and once it's gone, we can't get it back. By setting boundaries around how much time we give to others, whether it's in our personal lives or in our professional ones, we ensure that we have time left for ourselves, for rest, for hobbies, and for what truly matters to us. Without boundaries, we risk overcommitting, leading to stress, resentment, and burnout. But when we set and enforce boundaries around our time, we protect the balance that helps us show up fully in every area of our lives. Finally, boundaries are not only about protecting ourselves, but also about fostering trust and respect in our relationships. When we communicate our limits clearly, others understand that our needs are just as important as theirs. This creates a space where both parties can thrive, where love and care flow freely, without the fear of being taken advantage of or overwhelmed. Boundaries don't block intimacy or connection. Instead, they create the conditions for deeper, more meaningful relationships because they allow for honesty, vulnerability, and respect. In conclusion, the power of boundaries lies in their ability to protect our emotional, physical, and mental health. They are a reflection of how we honor ourselves and our own needs. Setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation, an essential practice for living a balanced and fulfilling life. Boundaries allow us to be present with others without losing ourselves, to give without depleting ourselves, and to love without compromising who we are. By setting clear, compassionate boundaries, we honor both our own well-being and the health of our relationships. In a society that often celebrates transparency and constant connection, privacy is becoming an increasingly rare commodity. We are encouraged to share our lives with others, whether on social media or through intimate conversations with friends and family. But while openness can foster connection, there's an inherent value in preserving certain parts of ourselves, a value that goes beyond mere secrecy or hiding. Privacy in this context is not just about keeping information from others, it's about choosing what to share, when to share it, and with whom. Privacy is, at its core, an essential form of self-care, a way to protect our emotional and mental well-being in an increasingly invasive world. We live in an era where personal boundaries are often blurred, where everything from our thoughts and opinions to our day-to-day activities can be broadcasted for public consumption. In this landscape, it can feel as if we are constantly on display, like a glass house where every decision and action is scrutinized. While technology offers incredible opportunities for connection, it also erodes our sense of autonomy. Every like, comment, or notification can leave us feeling exposed, vulnerable, or even pressured to perform a version of ourselves that aligns with external expectations rather than our authentic selves. In this world, privacy acts as a protective shield, guarding our internal world from the chaos of the external one. Privacy is a form of emotional protection. At its most fundamental level, privacy is a protective measure. Our emotions are deeply personal, and the act of revealing them to others leaves us vulnerable. Not everyone needs to know our deepest struggles, dreams, or insecurities. There is immense value in keeping certain aspects of our emotional lives private, as it helps protect us from potential judgment, misunderstanding, or even unsolicited advice. When we share too much too soon, especially with people who may not have the emotional maturity or capacity to handle it, we risk feeling exposed, invalidated, or even hurt. By choosing what to disclose and when, we are able to maintain a sense of control over our emotional landscape. Privacy allows us the time and space to process our feelings without external pressure. Instead of seeking validation or support from others immediately, we can sit with our emotions, reflect on them, and work through them privately. This process of emotional self-regulation is crucial for building resilience and emotional intelligence. It allows us to approach our experiences from a place of strength, rather than reacting impulsively or in a way that might not align with our true feelings. By giving ourselves the space to work through emotions privately, we prevent ourselves from becoming overwhelmed by them or seeking validation before we fully understand what we are feeling. Privacy enables reflection and self-discovery. In a world that is constantly noisy, filled with opinions, distractions, and demands, privacy offers us the rare opportunity to listen to ourselves. It allows us to slow down, reflect, and connect with our inner thoughts without external influence. Self-discovery is a personal journey, and privacy provides the quiet necessary for this process. Whether it's journaling, meditating, or simply being alone with your thoughts, privacy creates the space where we can reflect on who we are, what we truly value, and what we want for our lives. In moments of solitude, we are able to connect with our most authentic selves, free from the expectations or judgments of others. This self-knowledge is essential for making decisions that align with our values and goals. When we open ourselves up to constant feedback from others, whether through social media or constant conversations, we risk losing touch with our true desires. Privacy allows us to explore different facets of ourselves, experiment with new ideas, and evolve without the pressure of outside expectations. Privacy promotes healthy boundaries. Privacy is intrinsically tied to the concept of boundaries. Boundaries are the lines we draw around ourselves to protect our time, energy, and emotional well-being. Without privacy, these boundaries can become porous, and we may find ourselves giving too much, too often, to the point of depletion. By keeping certain aspects of ourselves private, we create a clear delineation between where we end and where others begin. We communicate without words that our time, energy, and emotional resources are precious, and that we cannot be constantly available to everyone. Privacy is the cornerstone of healthy boundaries because it allows us to control how much of ourselves we give away. When we respect our own privacy, we are also teaching others to respect our boundaries. We show them that we have a right to protect our own space and that we will not sacrifice our well-being for the sake of others' comfort. This fosters a healthier environment in our relationships where mutual respect and understanding can flourish. Boundaries, when enforced with privacy, prevent us from becoming overwhelmed by the demands of others, ensuring that we maintain a sense of equilibrium in our lives. Privacy enhances our sense of control. One of the most empowering aspects of privacy is the control it gives us over our own narrative. We all have a story, but not every part of it needs to be shared with the world. Privacy allows us to control which chapters of our lives are visible and which remain hidden, preserving our sense of autonomy. In a world where so much is out of our control, global events, other people's actions, and societal expectations, privacy offers a sanctuary where we can exercise agency over how we present ourselves. This control over what we share is particularly important in the context of our personal identities. The way we see ourselves should not be defined by the opinions or judgments of others, but by our own self-perception. Privacy allows us to protect the delicate nature of our self-concept by deciding how much of ourselves we expose to the world. By withholding certain parts of our lives, we are taking back the power to define who we are and how we wish to be seen. Privacy fosters healthy relationships. Finally, privacy contributes to the health of our relationships. It may seem counterintuitive, but the more we respect each other's privacy, the more trust and intimacy can grow. In relationships, it's important to have shared experiences, but it's equally important to have personal experiences that are separate. Privacy allows each person to maintain their individuality within the context of a relationship, preventing feelings of suffocation or loss of suffocation or loss of self. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect for each other's need for personal space, and privacy provides the framework for that. By protecting our own privacy, we also protect the integrity of our relationships. We are able to show up authentically without feeling the need to present a curated version of ourselves. Privacy fosters respect for each other's boundaries and needs, creating a space where each individual can thrive. It's this respect for privacy that deepens trust and allows for a more meaningful connection. In conclusion, privacy is not something to be feared or dismissed. It is a vital component of self-care. In a world that often demands we give of ourselves constantly, privacy is the sacred space where we can recharge, reflect, and protect our inner world. It allows us to maintain boundaries, engage in self-discovery, and preserve our emotional health. Privacy is not about hiding, it is about protecting what is most important to us and giving ourselves the time and space to care for our well-being. When we honor privacy, we honor ourselves, and that is the foundation for a balanced, healthy, and fulfilling life.in, the age of instant communication and the omnipresent pressure to share, we are constantly encouraged to voice our thoughts and opinions. Social media platforms, texting, and even face-to-face interactions push us to express ourselves freely and to seek validation for our ideas and feelings. While communication is essential for connection, not every thought, feeling, or impulse needs to be broadcasted to the world or even shared with those closest to us. The idea that every thought deserves an audience can be a dangerous one, leading us to overshare, create unnecessary drama, or expose parts of ourselves we might later regret. Our minds are busy places filled with a constant stream of thoughts, emotions, and judgments. Some of these thoughts are profound and insightful, and others are fleeting, often based on momentary frustrations, fears, or impulses. While it can be tempting to immediately share everything we think, it's important to recognize that not all of our thoughts are worth expressing, especially in the heat of the moment. By choosing not to share every thought, we create a filter, allowing ourselves the space to reflect, evaluate, and decide whether expressing that thought aligns with our values or serves any meaningful purpose. The nature of our thoughts. Thoughts come in all shapes and sizes. Some are grounded in reason, while others are emotional, instinctual, or influenced by external factors like stress, fatigue, or fleeting moods. Our brains are hardwired to process millions of bits of information daily, and sometimes these thoughts can be reactionary, knee-jerk responses to the world around us. For example, when we're feeling angry or hurt, our minds can generate quick, often negative thoughts, snap judgments, assumptions, or critiques that may feel true in the moment, but don't necessarily reflect our deeper values or rational thinking. Acting on these thoughts without considering their impact can lead to unnecessary conflict, hurt feelings, or misunderstandings. When we're upset or in the midst of an emotional reaction, it's easy to speak without thinking, to voice every frustration or opinion, as if it's the ultimate truth. But the reality is that many of these thoughts are temporary, passing moments of emotional turbulence, not reflective of who we truly are. Giving them an audience, whether through social media, text, or in-person conversations, can turn something fleeting into something permanent, leaving us with a lasting impression that may not be a true reflection of our character or our relationships. The dangers of oversharing. One of the most significant risks of sharing every thought is the potential to overshare. In today's digital age, oversharing has become almost normalized. People often share intimate details of their personal lives, unfiltered opinions, and deep emotions with a wide audience, sometimes with strangers, under the guise of vulnerability or seeking connection. While sharing can create intimacy and understanding, there is a fine line between authentic self-expression and oversharing that can leave us feeling exposed, misunderstood, or even vulnerable to exploitation. Oversharing can have unintended consequences. Once something is shared, especially in a public forum, it's hard to take back. Even if we delete a post, the information may have already been seen, shared, or saved. This can lead to regret or feelings of violation as our private thoughts and emotions become part of the public narrative. The more we share without discretion, the less control we have over how our stories are perceived, and the more likely we are to feel like we've lost control of our own identity. Not all thoughts need to be aired for validation or approval. In fact, some thoughts are better kept to ourselves because they don't need to be tested against the opinions of others. Seeking validation from others can be a trap because the feedback we receive may not always align with our own inner truths. Sometimes the best course of action is to let a thought sit for a while, to hold it in our own mind until we can reflect on whether it truly matters or serves a positive purpose. The impact on relationships. When we share every thought without considering the consequences, we also risk damaging our relationships. People appreciate authenticity, but they also appreciate boundaries and the ability to have thoughtful, measured interactions. Constantly unloading every fleeting thought, opinion, or judgment can become exhausting for others, creating a sense of emotional fatigue or even resentment. It can lead to the feeling that they are always the sounding board for our every impulse, rather than engaging in a conversation that is reciprocal and meaningful. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding, and part of that involves knowing when to speak and when to listen. Not every thought needs to be shared in order to maintain intimacy or connection. In fact, withholding certain thoughts can often foster deeper, more meaningful exchanges. We create space for our relationships to grow when we give others the opportunity to express themselves without feeling overwhelmed by our constant verbal stream. When we hold back, it allows others to contribute to the conversation, offering their own perspective without feeling overshadowed by our own immediate reactions. The value of reflection and discernment. The key to managing our thoughts and knowing when to share or withhold them lies in reflection and discernment. Not every passing idea or emotion needs to be acted upon immediately. In fact, taking time to reflect on a thought before sharing it can often result in greater clarity, insight, and maturity. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can give ourselves the space to process our emotions and assess whether the thought aligns with our values, goals, and the context of the situation. This process of reflection helps us to determine whether sharing the thought will lead to growth, connection, or understanding, or whether it will simply add noise, confusion, or conflict. In some cases, it may be better to keep the thought to ourselves, either because it's not relevant or because it's better expressed at a later time when we have more perspective. It's about exercising self-control and being mindful of the impact our words can have on others. When we pause before speaking, we give ourselves the opportunity to ensure that our words are both intentional and respectful. The power of silence and internal dialogue. One of the most profound acts of self-care is the ability to maintain silence and engage in internal dialogue rather than external expression. Not every thought requires an audience because some thoughts are meant to be explored within ourselves. Silence is not about suppressing our feelings, but about giving ourselves the space to process them without the influence of others. In silence, we have the chance to examine the roots of our thoughts, to understand why we feel the way we do, and to work through complex emotions in a way that fosters self-awareness. Internal dialogue is a powerful tool for self-growth. Instead of relying on others to help us make sense of our emotions or thoughts, we can engage in a deeper conversation with ourselves. This allows us to own our feelings, to explore them fully, and to take responsibility for our reactions. The more we rely on internal reflection, the less we feel the need to seek validation or approval from others, and the more we can trust our own judgment and instincts. The freedom of selective sharing. Ultimately, the decision of which thoughts to share and which to keep private is an empowering one. Choosing to withhold certain thoughts gives us the freedom to express ourselves on our own terms without being driven by the need for approval or external validation. It's about embracing the power of selective sharing, choosing to communicate when it matters and keeping silent when it doesn't. In this way, we take back control over our narrative and ensure that we are not defined by every fleeting impulse or passing emotion. When we decide not to share every thought, we create a sense of integrity. We maintain a sense of personal strength, knowing that we are not at the mercy of external forces to define in a world that often places great emphasis on external approval. It can be easy to lose sight of the importance of self-reflection. We live in an era where social media likes, comments, and the opinions of others can shape how we see ourselves. We're constantly encouraged to look outside ourselves for confirmation of our worth, to seek validation from the people around us, or to chase external markers of success such as status, achievements, and material possessions. But the truth is that external validation is fleeting and often unreliable, while self-reflection offers a deeper, more lasting sense of clarity, self-acceptance, and growth. When we prioritize self-reflection over external validation, we reclaim our power to define who we are and what we value. The dangers of relying on external validation. External validation, though gratifying in the short term, is inherently unstable. The opinions of others can shift, as can the societal standards of success, beauty, and happiness. The pressure to constantly measure up to external expectations can leave us feeling anxious, inadequate, or disconnected from our authentic selves. When we depend on external validation, we are essentially placing our sense of self-worth in the hands of others, allowing them to dictate how we feel about ourselves based on their approval or disapproval. This can lead to a cycle of seeking constant reassurance, never feeling quite good enough, and perpetually measuring ourselves against external benchmarks. Moreover, external validation often leads to people-pleasing behavior. When we seek approval from others, we may find ourselves compromising our values, desires, and boundaries in order to meet others' expectations. This undermines our authenticity, leaving us feeling empty, resentful, or disconnected from our true selves. In extreme cases, the constant chase for approval can cause emotional burnout and dissatisfaction, as we realize that no amount of external recognition can fill the void created by neglecting our own needs and desires. The validation we receive from others is often subjective and can be influenced by biases, judgments, or superficial factors. What one person values may be completely different from what another values. This inconsistency makes external validation unreliable as a true measure of our worth or success. If we constantly look to others for validation, we are essentially surrendering our sense of self to the whims of others' opinions, which can vary widely and unpredictably. The power of self-reflection. Self-reflection, on the other hand, empowers us to cultivate a deeper sense of self-awareness, authenticity, and inner peace. Rather than looking to others to define us, we look inward to discover what truly matters to us. Through self-reflection, we engage in a process of introspection that helps us understand our values, motivations, strengths, and areas for growth. It's a way of checking in with ourselves, of assessing whether our actions align with our values, and of course, correcting when necessary. Self-reflection fosters a sense of autonomy. It allows us to develop our own internal compass based on our personal beliefs and experiences, rather than relying on the fluctuating opinions of others. When we know ourselves well, our passions, our boundaries, our weaknesses, and our strengths, we become less susceptible to the external pressures that so often cause stress and confusion. We can walk through life with confidence in our own choices, even if they don't align with the expectations of others. Moreover, self-reflection enables personal growth. By regularly taking time to reflect on our experiences, we gain insight into how we can improve, learn from mistakes, and celebrate successes. This process is not about perfection, it's about progress. When we look to ourselves for validation, we give ourselves permission to embrace our flaws, knowing that growth is a continuous journey. We stop measuring our worth against others, and instead we measure it against the progress we've made, the values we've upheld, and the person we are becoming. Self-reflection builds inner confidence. The more we engage in self-reflection, the more we build inner confidence. This confidence is rooted not in external praise or approval, but in the trust we develop in our own judgment and abilities. We stop second-guessing ourselves based on others' opinions, and instead we trust our intuition, our knowledge, and our experiences. This type of confidence is resilient because it's based on a deep understanding of who we are and what we stand for, rather than on fleeting external factors. Self-reflection teaches us that we are enough just as we are. It encourages us to accept our imperfections and embrace them as part of our uniqueness. When we rely on external validation, we are constantly chasing after an ideal that may not even align with our true selves. But through self-reflection, we learn to honor our authentic identity, cultivating self-love and acceptance that is unconditional and independent of others' approval. Self-reflection promotes emotional health. In addition to fostering confidence, self-reflection also plays a key role in maintaining our emotional health. When we turn inward to reflect, we create the space to process our emotions, understand our triggers, and respond to situations more thoughtfully. Instead of reacting impulsively or seeking external solutions to our emotional struggles, self-reflection allows us to find our own answers within. This reduces emotional dependency on others, leading to healthier, more balanced relationships. Self-reflection also helps us practice self-compassion. By becoming aware of our inner dialogue, we can identify negative or self-critical thoughts and replace them with kinder, more supportive ones. Instead of seeking validation from others to reassure ourselves, we learn to comfort ourselves in times of doubt or insecurity. This self-compassion builds resilience, helping us navigate challenges with grace and understanding rather than being overwhelmed by them. When we reflect on our emotions and experiences, we also give ourselves the opportunity to heal. Instead of suppressing or ignoring our feelings, we allow ourselves the space to process them fully. This emotional processing is a key part of maintaining mental well-being, as it allows us to release negative emotions and move forward with a sense of clarity and peace. Self-reflection cultivates authentic relationships. Self-reflection also has a profound impact on our relationships when we take the time to understand ourselves, our needs. Vulnerability doesn't mean overexposure. In a world that increasingly celebrates transparency and openness, the concept of vulnerability has become a powerful tool for connection and authenticity. We are often told that in order to form deeper bonds and experience genuine relationships, we must be willing to show our true selves, to let others in, and to be open about our feelings, fears, and struggles. But while vulnerability is an essential part of human connection, it's important to understand that it doesn't mean overexposure or revealing everything about ourselves to everyone. There is a crucial distinction between being vulnerable and being overly exposed, and understanding this difference is key to maintaining healthy boundaries, emotional well-being, and a sense of self-respect. Vulnerability is about embracing the courage to be seen for who we truly are, with all our imperfections, struggles, and hopes. It's about allowing ourselves to show our true selves without the protective armor of a facade, to express our feelings and needs without fear of judgment or rejection. However, vulnerability doesn't require us to expose every part of ourselves, especially to those who may not be equipped or trustworthy enough to handle that level of intimacy. True vulnerability is about knowing when and where to share, with whom, and in what context, not about offering all our inner thoughts and emotions indiscriminately. The difference between vulnerability and overexposure. While vulnerability involves sharing parts of ourselves that are real and raw, overexposure is the act of revealing too much too soon, or in situations where doing so isn't healthy or appropriate. Vulnerability is intentional. It requires discernment and a sense of purpose. Overexposure, on the other hand, is impulsive and often rooted in a desire for validation or external approval. Vulnerability is about being seen and accepted for who we are, while overexposure is about putting ourselves out there in a way that can leave us feeling exposed, violated, or disconnected from our sense of self. One key difference between the two is the context in which they occur. Vulnerability involves sharing ourselves in environments where it is safe to do so, whether with a trusted friend, a therapist, or a supportive community. It's about creating meaningful connections and deepening relationships based on mutual trust and respect. Overexposure, however, occurs when we share intimate details about ourselves with people who may not have the capacity or the emotional maturity to handle that level of openness. This can happen when we reveal personal information to acquaintances, strangers, or on public platforms, often in an attempt to gain attention, sympathy, or reassurance. Overexposure can also occur when we reveal personal information too early in a relationship or before we've had the opportunity to establish trust and understanding. When we share our vulnerabilities too quickly, we run the risk of overwhelming others, pushing them away, or feeling invalidated if the response is not as supportive as we had hoped. This can leave us feeling emotionally drained and disconnected, rather than supported and understood. The emotional risks of overexposure can take a significant toll on our emotional health. One of the risks is that it can create a sense of vulnerability without the protective layer of trust. When we share our most intimate thoughts, struggles, or personal histories with others who are not ready or able to handle them, we expose ourselves to potential judgment, rejection, or even manipulation. This can be deeply hurtful, as it undermines our sense of safety and security in the relationship. Another risk of overexposure is the loss of a sense of control. Vulnerability, when practiced in a healthy way, allows us to choose what we share and when, maintaining a sense of agency over our emotional life. Overexposure, however, often involves revealing too much without considering the consequences. This can lead to feelings of regret, shame, or discomfort, especially if we later feel that we've shared too much or given too much of ourselves away. When we overexpose ourselves, we also run the risk of losing the intimacy that comes from vulnerability. True intimacy is built over time through shared experiences, trust, and understanding. Overexposing ourselves can actually sabotage this process by making it harder for others to connect with us on a deeper level. If we reveal too much too soon, we may inadvertently make the other person uncomfortable or cause them to feel burdened by the intensity of our disclosures. This can lead to a sense of emotional distance or even withdrawal from the relationship, as the other person may feel overwhelmed or unsure of how to respond. The importance of boundaries and vulnerability. One of the key principles of healthy vulnerability is the ability to set boundaries. Vulnerability doesn't mean throwing caution to the wind or revealing every thought, feeling, or experience we've ever seen. It means being discerning about what we share and with whom, taking into account the context of the relationship and the emotional capacity of the other person. Boundaries are an essential part of self-respect and self-care, and they help protect us from the emotional risks of overexposure. Setting boundaries and vulnerability involves understanding our emotional limits and recognizing when a situation or relationship isn't conducive to sharing deeply. It means knowing when to hold back, to process our emotions privately, or to seek support from trusted individuals who can handle the depth of our experiences. Healthy boundaries also involve knowing that not every relationship requires the same level of emotional openness. Some relationships, such as those with acquaintances or colleagues, may not be the right context for sharing deeply personal information, while others, such as close friendships or romantic partnerships, may provide the safety and trust needed for vulnerability. By respecting our own boundaries, we also teach others how to respect us. We show them that we are worthy of being treated with care and consideration, and that we value our emotional well-being. Setting boundaries around vulnerability can help us avoid the dangers of overexposure and instead create deeper, more authentic connections with those who are able to hold space for vulnerability as empowerment. When approached with mindfulness and discernment, vulnerability is a source of immense personal power. It allows us to live authentically, to express our emotions and needs, and to connect with others in meaningful ways. Vulnerability, when practiced in healthy doses, fosters intimacy, trust, and emotional resilience. It invites others to meet us in our rawness, creating a space where mutual understanding and support can flourish. However, vulnerability does not require us to sacrifice our dignity or expose ourselves to emotional harm. It's about being authentic and open, but also about knowing that we deserve respect and care. We don't have to reveal everything about ourselves to be vulnerable. We can choose to share selectively, offering pieces of ourselves that are meaningful, but also protecting parts that are still in process or that require more trust to reveal. Vulnerability, in this sense, is not about overexposing ourselves to the point of emotional exhaustion or shame, but about offering pieces of our true selves in a way that feels safe and empowering. Vulnerability becomes truly powerful when we practice it with self-awareness and self-respect. By holding onto our boundaries while still opening up, we create space for authentic, meaningful connections without the risk of feeling overwhelmed or exposed. When we strike this balance, we find that vulnerability becomes an act of empowerment, allowing us to build deeper, more resilient relationships and embrace the fullness of who we are without the fear of overexposing ourselves. Conclusion. In conclusion, vulnerability is a beautiful and transformative aspect of the human experience, but it must be practiced with awareness, discernment, and boundaries. It does not mean overexposing ourselves or sharing every thought, feeling, or detail of our lives with everyone we meet. True vulnerability is about choosing the right time, the right people, and the right context to share our most authentic selves. It's about building trust, fostering connection, and maintaining in an increasingly connected world where everyone seems to have an opinion and platforms abound to voice those opinions. It can be easy to lose sight of who we truly are and what we stand for. Every day, we are exposed to external narratives about who we should be, how we should behave, and what we should aspire to achieve. Social media, news outlets, and even well-meaning friends and family can impose a framework on us. shaping how we are perceived by the world. However, one of the most powerful and essential practices for maintaining our authenticity is protecting our personal narrative, owning the story we tell about ourselves, and ensuring that it aligns with our true values, beliefs, and aspirations. Protecting our personal narrative means taking charge of our identity, not allowing others to define us or distort our experiences, and holding firm to the story we choose to tell about our lives. The importance of your personal narrative. Our personal narrative is the story we tell ourselves about who we are, where we've been, and where we're going. It is the internal dialogue that helps us make sense of our experiences, informs our decisions, and shapes how we interact with the world. This narrative is intimately tied to our sense of self-worth, as it influences how we view our past and how we envision our future. It gives us a framework for understanding our place in the world, our relationships with others, and our goals. Protecting your personal narrative is not about trying to control how others perceive you. It's about ensuring that the way you view yourself is rooted in truth and self-awareness. It's about maintaining the power to shape your own story, regardless of external pressures or judgments. When we allow our personal narrative to be dictated by others, we risk losing touch with our authentic selves and losing the agency we need to live a life that feels true to who we are. Your personal narrative is a reflection of your values, your experiences, and the lessons you've learned. It's the lens through which you interpret the world and make meaning out of your experiences. By consciously protecting this narrative, you ensure that your life story remains grounded in your own truth, rather than in the shifting opinions of others. This practice of self-authorship is crucial for cultivating self-respect, inner strength, and a sense of direction in life. The external forces that threaten your personal narrative. There are many forces in the world that attempt to influence or distort our personal narrative. In a world dominated by social media, the pressure to conform to certain ideals can be overwhelming. We are constantly bombarded by images of what success, beauty, happiness, and fulfillment look like according to society's standards. This can lead us to question our own experiences, desires, and values, and begin to compare ourselves to others. The external noise of social media, advertisements, and societal expectations can create confusion, making it harder for us to stay true to our personal narrative and goals. Another threat to our personal narrative comes from the judgments of others. People often project their own beliefs, insecurities, and experiences onto us, trying to define who we are or how we should live. This can be particularly challenging when it comes from those closest to us, family members, friends, or colleagues whose opinions may carry significant weight in our lives. While feedback and advice can be helpful, it's essential to filter these external influences through the lens of our own values and goals. When we allow the opinions of others to define our worth or our choices, we begin to lose control over our personal narrative, allowing outside forces to rewrite the story of our lives. Even our past can be a source of distortion when it comes to our personal narrative. We all have moments or experiences that we may feel embarrassed about, regret, or wish we could erase. However, these parts of our story are just as much a part of who we are as our successes and triumphs. If we allow our past mistakes or painful experiences to define us, or if we try to hide them from others, we risk creating an incomplete or inaccurate personal narrative. The key is not to let these experiences control us, but to integrate them into the broader story of who we are, recognizing that they have helped shape us into the people we are today. Owning your story. The first step in protecting your personal narrative is owning your story. Owning your story means fully accepting all parts of yourself, the good, the bad, and everything in between. It's about embracing your past, your flaws, your struggles, and your triumphs as essential elements of who you are. When you own your story, you no longer feel the need to hide or downplay certain aspects of your life. Instead, you approach them with a sense of pride and confidence, knowing that they are integral to the person you have become. Owning your story is also about recognizing that you are the author of your own life. While external events may influence the course of your life, it's your perspective, your reactions, and your choices that determine the meaning and impact of those events. By taking responsibility for your story, you take ownership of your future and your potential. You refuse to let anyone else define you or tell you what your life should look like. When you own your story, you can begin to rewrite any parts of your narrative that no longer serve you. This doesn't mean denying your past or pretending that negative experiences didn't happen, but rather reframing them in a way that aligns with your current values and beliefs. For example, you may choose to see a past failure as a learning opportunity rather than a defeat. Or you may decide to let go of negative labels others have placed on you, choosing to define yourself in your own terms. In a world that constantly bombards us with noise, information, and expectations, silence has become a rare and often undervalued gift. We live in an era where constant stimulation, whether through social media, television work, or even the hum of everyday life, has led us to forget the profound impact that silence can have on our minds, bodies, and souls. Yet silence is not just the absence of sound, it is an active, powerful tool for self-discovery, inner peace, and growth. When we embrace silence, we allow ourselves the space to connect with our true selves, find clarity amidst the chaos, and recharge our emotional and mental reserves. The power of silence for self-reflection. One of the greatest gifts of silence is its ability to create space for self-reflection. In a world where we are often pulled in countless directions, silence allows us to step back and assess where we are in life. Without the distractions of external noise, we are given the opportunity to look inward, to examine our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without judgment or interruption. This reflective space provides clarity, helping us make sense of our experiences and identify patterns in our thinking or behavior that we may not have been aware of in the busyness of daily life. Self-reflection in silence is like cleaning a window. It clears away the fog of external pressures and judgments, allowing us to see ourselves with more honesty and depth. This quiet introspection helps us reconnect with our values, priorities, and desires. It allows us to check in with ourselves and ask essential questions. Am I living in alignment with my true self? Are my actions reflecting my values? What do I need in order to feel fulfilled? In silence, we are free to confront these questions, and in doing so, we uncover insights that lead to more intentional living. In a society that values constant productivity and achievement, silence can be revolutionary. By taking time for quiet contemplation, we can step outside the race and reorient ourselves towards what truly matters. This is a rare opportunity to listen to our inner voice, free from the distractions of others' expectations or external pressures. It is in silence that we often discover our truest desires, unfiltered by the noise of daily life. Silence as a pathway to emotional healing. Silence also holds tremendous power as a tool for emotional healing. In the fast-paced nature of modern life, we can sometimes feel overwhelmed by the emotions we experience. Whether it's grief, anger, anxiety, or stress, emotions can become muddled or intensified when we don't take the time to process them. Silence provides a sanctuary for us to sit with our emotions, not in an attempt to suppress them, but to understand and process them. When we allow ourselves to sit in silence with our feelings, we give ourselves the space to truly feel them. We stop running from discomfort, and instead we acknowledge it. This is the first step in emotional healing acceptance. Silence creates a safe environment for us to confront painful emotions without the need for immediate solutions or distractions. It's in this stillness that we can reflect on the sources of our pain, understand its root causes, and begin to release the emotional burdens we carry. Through silence, we learn to embrace our vulnerability and allow ourselves to heal at our own pace. Furthermore, silence helps us to cultivate emotional resilience. When we sit with our feelings in a non-judgmental way, we build an emotional capacity that allows us to face difficult situations with greater composure. Silence teaches us how to create emotional space, how to breathe through tension, and how to respond with greater wisdom and less reactivity. This kind of emotional awareness not only improves our well-being, but also deepens our relationships with others as we become more in tune with our own emotional states and better equipped to communicate them effectively. silence as a source of creativity. In addition to its emotional benefits, silence also nurtures creativity. Many of the world's greatest creative minds have credited their most inspired ideas to moments of solitude and silence. In a world full of distractions, it can be difficult for our minds to make room for new ideas. But when we enter silence, we allow our minds the freedom to wander, to dream, and to create. Silence gives the brain the space it needs to process information, make connections, and tap into the well of creativity within. Without the constant bombardment of noise, our minds are free to play, to explore new possibilities, and to break free from established patterns of thought. Whether through writing, painting, music, or problem solving, silence allows us to think deeply and explore ideas without judgment. It is in this quiet space that our most innovative ideas often emerge, not from forced effort, but from the natural flow of thought unimpeded by distractions. Silence also helps us tune into the subtle inspirations that come from within. It allows us to listen to the whispers of our intuition, that inner voice that often gets drowned out by external chatter. In silence, we give ourselves permission to pause, to reflect, and to let new insights arise. The creative process often requires moments of stillness, where we allow ourselves to simply be, without the pressure to perform or create. In this way, silence becomes a fertile ground for the seeds of innovation and artistry to grow. While silence is often thought of as a solitary experience, it can also deepen our connections with others. In a culture that places so much emphasis on talking, listening has become a rare and precious skill. When we embrace silence in our interactions, we create the space for truly listening to others, for being present with them in a way that goes beyond words. Silence can enhance our relationships by allowing us to show empathy, understanding, and support without needing to fill the gaps with our own voices. When we listen in silence, we communicate a deep respect for the other person's experience, allowing them to be fully heard. This nonverbal communication fosters trust and intimacy, as it signals to the other person that we are not merely waiting for our turn to speak, but that we are genuinely engaged in what they are sharing. Moreover, silence can also be a powerful tool for conflict resolution. When tensions rise, sometimes the most productive action is simply stepping back into silence. This moment of pause can allow emotions to settle, tempers to cool, and both parties to reflect before reacting. Silence, in this case, creates the space for thoughtful, measured responses rather than impulsive words that may escalate the conflict. In relationships, silence can be a form of respect for the other person's point of view, and respect for the need to process emotions before speaking. Silence and mindfulness. The practice of mindfulness, which has gained widespread popularity in recent years, is essentially the practice of engaging in the present moment with full awareness. Silence plays a crucial role in mindfulness because it helps us tune into the present without distractions. Through silent moments of reflection or meditation, we can connect more deeply with our thoughts, sensations, and surroundings. Silence invites us to experience life in its fullness without the noise that often distracts us from appreciating the small, beautiful moments that unfold around us. Mindfulness in silence can be practiced through meditation, where we focus on our breath, bodily sensations, or the present moment. By sitting in stillness, we cultivate the ability to observe our thoughts without becoming attached to them. This practice of mindfulness helps reduce stress, anxiety, and negative thinking patterns as we become less reactive and more at peace with what is. Silence, in this sense, becomes a gateway to a deeper state of awareness, one that promotes emotional balance, greater concentration, and inner peace. The gift of silence in a noisy world. In conclusion, silence is not merely the absence of noise, but a powerful and transformative tool that offers numerous benefits for our mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. It gives us the space to reflect, heal, create, connect, and cultivate mindfulness. In a world filled with distractions and demands, silence is a gift that allows us to reconnect with ourselves, our inner wisdom, and those around us. By embracing the gift of silence, we unlock the potential for deeper self-awareness, creativity, and fulfillment. It is through silence that we find the peace and clarity we need to navigate the complexities of life with grace and purpose in a world that never stops moving, where noise is constant and distractions are everywhere. The gift of silence is one we must learn to cherish. It is in silence that we reconnect with ourselves, find clarity, and cultivate the space we need to reflect, heal, and grow. It is in these quiet moments that we tap into our creativity, strengthen our relationships, and deepen our understanding of the world around us. Silence does not simply mean the absence of sound. It is an invitation to be present, to listen more deeply, and to be more intentional with our words and actions. So I encourage you to embrace silence as a powerful tool in your own life. Seek moments of stillness amidst the chaos. Allow silence to become a sanctuary where you can reflect on your true self, your values, and your purpose. In these moments, you will find the space to reconnect with your inner wisdom and the peace that resides within. Remember, silence is not empty, it is full of possibility. It is a gift, one that, when embraced, can transform your life. Thank you.